I think it was mainly influenced through my dad. He was born in Germany, so obviously a big football country, and when I was younger I played a range of different sports, but football was probably the one that I think I loved the most. I loved AFL as well, and played club AFL until I was 10 and just played school football, and then at that age of 10 he was the one that influenced me, or kind of pushed me into it, I guess, and said you're better at this. And that's when I started to play for club and really enjoying it, and I was always waking up at 4:30 to watch Champions League games on SBS, and going online and seeing highlights was, I guess, where that love came from. I went through Adelaide City from under 10s through to the reserve team. I was only 14 back then, but I worked my way, I guess, through the different age groups and trained with the first team. Didn't make any of the state teams, so I guess that's where the Adelaide City was really important for me, because that was where all my development came from. For me, the most important, and not even knowing I was doing it at the time, was always having a ball at my feet. And I think I was training twice a week with Adelaide City from 10 till 14, which isn't very much. Before that, when I was playing school football from 5 to 10, we trained once a week for 2 terms of the year, played a game on the weekend, and that was it really. So where my, I guess, ability, I believe, came from was, I always had a ball at my feet in the house. I was dribbling from the kitchen to the lounge room, probably driving my parents crazy. Well, I know I was driving them crazy and breaking a few things, but that probably made me develop the skills to actually, go and play at a higher level, which as a kid I didn't realise that's what I was doing. And then going in the backyard, playing with my brother, playing with friends, playing at recess and lunch, it was always around football. So I think that's something that these academies and these clubs and everything that's around now, it's so much more professional. When I was younger, which is great, but I do believe the most important is what you do when you're not at the club, because that street football is where you learn a lot more and develop a lot more as a player. Got the email in early January that I'd been selected to go away, and it was a massive moment in my career. Obviously I wanted to be a professional footballer. I think going away to the AIS was, without getting paid, was being a professional footballer. You were moving away from home. You had the facilities there, you had to become independent. We lived on site for the first 12 months, and then they had that transition to I guess, going into families, so host families. So that was actually quite challenging, being independent, living on your own, to then living with another family. And I was lucky, Ben Garuccio, my best mate from Adelaide, who we grew up with, he was there at the AIS, and then we went to the same family. So at least I wasn't completely on my own, but that whole process was something that I think made me the person I am, because I had to mature a lot quicker. Once you got to the AIS, I didn't have my mum to tell me to wake up to go to training or to get to the school bus on time. If I didn't do that, then I didn't get to school, and then I probably wasn't allowed to train. So you learn a lot off the field, which actually helps you on the field. Definitely individually I improved there. I think you're just surrounded by the best players in the country. So, you go to an environment where football really was your focus. You could, even though they probably didn't want us to, you could train extra all the time. You were surrounded by the best players in the country. So when you went to training, the standard was higher. So you had to, I guess, lift your own game to keep improving and to keep up with that level, or you weren't going to progress. So I think it was a combination of, they had the time to spend with you to improve you individually, but also you're in a really good environment with the best players. And then the off-field stuff, like you said, with focusing on nutrition, sports science, recovery, things that I'd never been exposed to before I started to understand what you do off the field is probably more important than what you do on the field, because if you're not ready to perform on the field when you get there, it's hard to play well. So what you do in that time outside of it is really going to dictate whether you actually can train and play well in the matches. Yeah, it was massive. I think I signed at the time, it was a youth contract into a professional contract, but that transition at the start was really tough, but also it made me grow up as a 16-year-old to live in a city like Melbourne, to become more independent, to understand that I went from youth football where developing you as a player was the main objective to I'm now at Melbourne Heart and I'm trying to play on the weekend, but I've got someone like Matt Thompson in my position who's 30 odd, and he's trying to win another contract. He's not going to let me play on the weekend because he thinks I'm a nice guy. It's about competing in training to actually win that spot And then when you get out there for the game, you understand winning or losing is essentially everything, because you win, everyone's over the moon. You lose, you come in on Monday, the players aren't happy, the coaches aren't happy, the staff aren't happy, the owners aren't happy, and you're like, okay, this is professional football where it's a results-based business. And as much as they want to develop us, and I think they did a really good job in developing me as a player, you have to win. You have to win, and that mentality, I think, is what separates some of the younger players from the ones that make it and don't, is maybe they can't handle that pressure, or maybe they just don't enjoy that pressure, and that was something that I guess really thrived off. When you're a young player, you know, you've got ambitions to go overseas, to be in national teams, to get another contract, just as the older players do, to get another contract or to move to Asia possibly. Everybody's got their own objectives, but they're putting pressure on themselves, and the coaches want to do really well so they can win the championship and get another contract. So I definitely noticed that massive difference from the AIS to a professional setup of just the intensity of training, and the difference of the mood when you win versus when you lose. It was like, okay, I maybe can't make any jokes after a loss because there's a few people that are angry, where in a youth setup it's not as big of a deal because you're just there to get better. The A-League has been a great place for me to improve as a player, to, I guess, forge my way as a professional. And going to Adelaide, I had a really successful time, and that's probably where I've had my most success. I think that's something for me, I don't know why, I guess when I'm comfortable maybe in a good environment at Adelaide, I've tended to do quite well. But I've also enjoyed the different experiences of playing for Melbourne City, coming back after Europe, being with them, going to Brisbane, and you know, every club has been really good for me when I've been at it. But I've always had that ambition to go overseas, whether it's Europe and now Asia. But you know, overall, I think the league's in a good position right now, and you know, I can never be, I guess, thankful enough for the opportunity that it's given me to live my dream. Yeah, surreal moment when it all kind of came about. I won the championship with Adelaide. I was then away in Bali with my girlfriend, now wife, and I actually got a message from the Socceroos team manager saying that you've been called up into the camp, and I thought it was someone playing a joke on me. And then from that's when my agent Vince Grella had let me know that there was a few teams that were interested in different leagues, and this one, I guess, after the Socceroos camp, I guess kind of got sped up a little bit, and the clubs agreed a transfer because I had it in my contract, and so that was made quite simple. The money I didn't really care about, I just wanted to get overseas, and after speaking to the coach, this was the best opportunity for me to go and play and progress. And I think for any young player, when you're making a decision, you're not always going to get it right, but if you have the right intentions behind why you're going to a certain team, and for me it ticked every box in terms of, I think I was going to play. The style that he said that they were going to play was great. It's in a good developing league. So everything kind of ticked on that aspect, and it wasn't until I got there that things went really poorly. But you just don't know a lot of these things, and it was a really good lesson for myself, and not always believing maybe the coach and what they say. Holland was a great country, but again, moving into state is one thing. At 20 I was when I went to Holland. To move to a different country where you've got, you know, the language barrier, even though they speak very good English. You go to the supermarkets, things are in Dutch obviously. You're driving on the opposite side of the road. You've got teammates from all over the world, and they were friendly, but they also didn't care about me the same way that Australian players will really embrace foreign players coming in here. And that's because everybody's quite ambitious over there to get that next move, and they're not worried about it helping anyone else. And I played the first game when I went there, and then didn't play again until the 34th round, which was the last game of the season after the coach got sacked. And I went through probably a really dark time over there, but it also was probably my biggest learning and growth moments, and understanding more into the mind and how important that is. And you know, that's probably something that I wish I could do again, but that's the way life is. Sometimes those moments come and you don't handle them well, but you learn from it, and that's what I've tried to do since I've been back. Yeah, completely different. I think, you know, it's something that I think if I was 20, it would have been even harder to handle over there in Japan. But because of the experience in Holland, came back to Australia, I always had that ambition, and the older you get, the harder it does get to go to Europe, and or probably not just go, but to, I guess, financially set yourself up. You start to think about your family and different things as well. So, you know, Europe is great for young players, but unless you're at the top leagues, there's not a lot of money there, especially after COVID, and Japan is a top quality league, and somewhere where I think a lot more Australians should be looking to aim to go. But also financially, you get that backing as well, which is ticking another box. So once the opportunity came up to leave, it was hard being the captain of Adelaide, but I always thought that I was going to regret not going. You know, if I stayed at Adelaide, that was going to be playing on my mind for the rest of my career if I never got another opportunity. So I had to go, and the first season has been really good, but it's also been really challenging where, you know, it was hard in Holland with the language, but most of them spoke English. In Japan, not many people speak English, especially in the city that I'm in Okayama. You know, there's probably 20 or 30 other foreigners that we've seen. Everybody else is Japanese, so it's quite isolating sometimes. And you go to the supermarkets, and it's even harder because you don't know what anything is. You're reading it, you've got Google Translate out all the time with your phone, and but that's part of the challenge, and that's why I wanted to go there, to help grow as a person and as a player, and also be experienced to what football's like there. And it's really blown my mind as to the way they train there, from young kids, even in a professional setup, how many games they obviously play, what their mentality is like. And I think Australia could really learn a lot from Japanese football and culture, and I understand every country is different, so we can't copy them or replicate what they're doing, but we could definitely take a lot of good aspects and use that in our game.